So yeah, hi everybody, I'm Ruthra. As I said in the introduction, I'm part of the accounts team. Specifically, I take care of issues and refactor kind of work. So my day-to-day activity is mostly with trying to replicate issues and find fix for them. So in this talk, I'll show you what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years in Frappe, what my day-to-day work looks like, and I'll probably maybe inspire you guys to try to do the same from your end. So a little bit about me again. I'm an engineer. I'm part of the accounts module. Oops. Okay, fine. So I'm part of the accounts module. I work as an engineer. So my work is mostly with code refactor. Take any piece of code. If it doesn't work properly, I have to refactor it. At the same time, I also introduce new features every now and then, but it's not my primary work. ERPNext is already almost mature. It doesn't need new features all the time. In my 2.5 years of working in Frappe, I've handled close to 800 tickets, ranging from minor validation issues, like when you try to submit a document, you get a validation error, all the way to multi-currency issues where I ended up having to refactor the entire multi-currency invoicing logic in ERPNext. In V14, we made a major refactor for this multi-currency invoicing. I was part of doing. I was the one who did that. So if you are wondering. So of this, having dealt with this 800 plus tickets, as an engineer, you tend to see patterns. You tend to see patterns emerge, right? So these are common patterns I've seen in issues when dealing specifically with accounting module. I'm not talking about general in all the modules, just accounts. So some of these types are like programming errors, which is practically a bug. It's an incorrect piece of code which creates an incorrect data in the database. So it's practically a bug which it needs to be fixed, and the incorrect data need to be patched. And then we have data issues, which can be user induced or maybe from a bug like the programming error, but at the end of the day you need to write a patch to fix that as well. And then we have functional issues. Functional issues, they don't require immediate solution. They are mostly classified as feature request, and we'll just probably ignore them for a couple of months and then build it later. Let's start with the first category. So in this talk now, I'm going to only talk about the first two categories: programming errors, bugs, and data issues. When you get a ticket or when you have an issue, how do you identify which category this issue falls in, and how do you go about fixing them? Let's start with programming errors, right? So programming errors, it's a piece of code, incorrect code, creates invalid data in the database. Fine, but it doesn't throw any exception. It doesn't throw any errors. All of your normal workflows, like creating a sales invoice or creating a payment entry, works as usual. There is no issue in it. But when you go and look at the data later, you will have invalid data. So these are programming errors. How do you identify them? Is there any example? Yeah, I have one example. This issue happened like a couple of months back, where if you have a payment, and if you allocate a payment to an invoice, there are some scenarios where the payment can be over allocated to an invoice. In accounts, that's a huge bug. Like, think about it. Like, you're allocating money that you don't have, right? So the key thing to note here is it only happens sometimes. It doesn't happen in every payment entry. So that makes the issue even more hard to debug. But it is still doable. It doesn't require complex or highly sophisticated tools. You just need basic understanding of the Frappe's architecture and how ERPNext functions. I'll show you an example. So this is a screenshot of one of our clients who raised this issue. This is a payment entry. I've hidden all the critical details. As you can see, the paid amount is 3,43,657. But if you look at the total allocated amount at the bottom, it's 4,14,000. How come? Obviously, there's a bug. But the user doesn't know this. I mean, the user doesn't care about this. He just wants the payment entry to be fixed, and he doesn't know when exactly this occurs. This is just one example. There are 2 or 3 other examples where the payment entry is over-allocated, but it's my job, or it's the engineer's job to find a replicable case for this issue, so you can find the root cause and then fix it later. So let me try to replicate this bug on a local system. So I always start with a clean slate. Since this is my local setup, I have quite a lot of data here. Let me first start my bench. Okay. What now? Well, I think just a second. Let me change the resolution. Okay. Okay, got it. Fine. Okay. So let's go back to the screenshot. See if we can find any hints for us to analyze this issue. So we have payment entry. That payment entry has been allocated to 4 different vouchers, and we see a purchase order and we see 3 purchase invoices. And somehow row number 3 and 4 have almost the same values. Let's use this as a starting point. Let me try to create a sales order first. So I'm going to use this customer called Wayne because it doesn't have any transactions made against it. So let's do this. Let me remove the tax. I just want a really clean round number as a grand total, so it's easy to look at. Okay, we have a sales order for 1,000. So now what we can do now, we'll create a payment entry for this. Fine, a payment entry has been created and it has been allocated to the sales order. The allocated amount is 1,000. There is no issue. Like you have a payment entry for amount 1,000 and you allocated the 1,000. There is no issue here. But if you look at the screenshot again, they have purchase invoices allocated to them. So they most likely use the payment reconciliation tool to allocate this payment from the order, the advance, to the individual invoices, right? So let's try to do that. Let me create a sales invoice. Let me make a partial invoice, not for the exact same quantity. Again, I don't want taxes because I just want a clean round number as a grand total. Save. Fine, it's saved. Now let me go to the payment reconciliation. Okay, so we have an invoice and we have the payment. We have the advance payment, right? So let's try to allocate and reconcile them. See, we allocate. Yeah, the invoice is only for 400. So we allocate 400 from the payment entry to the invoice, and then we reconcile. Successfully reconciled. If you go back to the reconciliation tool now correctly gives, okay, you allocated 400, you still have 600 remaining. There is no issue here. Okay. How come? Even if you go to the references, you still have the correct data. 400 is allocated to the invoice and 600 is allocated to the sales order. So what do we do here? Like we almost simulated the same setup that the user has reported, but we still haven't replicated the issue. So what can we do? This is where it's more of like a hunch. So as soon as I saw the screenshot where the row number 3 and 4 sharing the same exact allocated amount or outstanding value, I got an idea that okay, maybe it doesn't happen on the reconciling one payment entity to one payment sales invoice, but one payment entity to multiple invoices at the same time. Let's try that. See if it works, right? So let me cancel this. For good measure, I'm going to delete it so that it doesn't pollute the screen. Fine. So we still have a sales order. We still have a sales invoice, but we need one more sales invoice. We need multiple sales invoices, no? So let me duplicate it so that I don't have to type again. And this time also I'm going to make a partial invoice, not for the exact full amount. I need some payment due date. Done. Now let me go back to the reconciliation tool. Oh, I need to make a payment entry, right? So I'll make a payment entry against the sales order itself. That's the critical part. This issue doesn't happen on standalone payment entries. This issue happens on payment entries made against the sales order and then later reconciled against multiple invoices. So yeah, the advance payment has been made. Let me pull that in the reconciliation tool, yes. Allocate. So we have 400 and 300 allocation, and then we reconcile. So we reconciled both of the invoices, but one of the invoices is still showing up as outstanding, and the payment entry has an incorrect outstanding as well. So we allocated close to 700. We should have only seen 300, but we are seeing 600. Let's go to the payment entry. Look at the references. We have 3 references. Yes, that's fine. But the total allocated amount is still not over 1,000. So we still haven't replicated it. The reason being, misled you to believe that you only need 2 purchase invoices, but no, that's not the case. You need the first invoice to be smaller in amount to the second invoice. If you do that, then it's replicable. You get the point, right? Like it's not an easy, eyeballing issue. You need some kind of a gut feeling to figure it out, but I'll show you. So again, I'm going to cancel this. So we have 2 invoices, right? What I'm going to do now, I'll delete the larger one. I'll create another invoice, but this time this invoice is actually larger in value. The outstanding amount will be larger for this than the first invoice. Now I again make a payment entry for that sales order. Fine. So now we have 2 invoices. The first invoice has a lower outstanding than the second invoice. Now let's try to allocate and reconcile them. So allocate, reconcile. Oh, now the payment entry has a 700 outstanding. Okay, fine. Look at this. So the total paid amount is 1,000, but the total allocated amount is 1,100. So we replicated it. So the point I'm trying to make is, a user will only give you a single screenshot and expect you to figure it out. At the end of the day, it's on my head to find all the permutation combination upon which this issue might show its face. Okay, till now, I'm only trying to figure out a replicable scenario to further debug this. All of this work that I've done till now is just to figure out a replicable case. We still have to debug the issue and make a fix for it, right? I have a strategy for that as well. I won't be actually fixing the code. I'll show you how I quickly iterate over the debugging session. So let's go back to the presentation. So how do you approach this bug? First step, always identify the smallest reproducible scenario for that issue. In this case, it happens to be you need a sales order, you need 2 sales invoices, and you need the first sales invoice to be lower in total outstanding amount than the second one. So this is a really complex one. I chose this specifically to show that these kinds of issues are possible and can happen. Okay, the next strategy I'm going to show is the Frappe's very simple DB transaction model. So what does it mean? It means that whenever framework sees any exception during a database transaction, it rolls back everything and it just throws an error. Okay, how can we use that as an advantage? I'll show you. So all this time for replication, I created a sales order, I created a sales invoice, I allocated and reconciled, right? So if I want to redo it, I need to redo the same thing again. No? You won't have to do that. So I'm going to first cancel the payment entry. I'm going to create a new fresh one with amount 1,000, and it's already allocated to sales order as well. Fine. Now, before replicating this issue,
I go to my code. Whenever you reconcile, you get the message, right? Successfully reconciled. So I locate that specific pop-up, which I already opened up. You know what? I'm going to stop here. Let me not commit this transaction. Okay. Now, I'm going to allocate, reconcile. It doesn't go through. So now I have a very short, tight, replicable execution loop. Now all I can simply do is I can just write print statements wherever I want. I don't have to go and create a payment entry, sales order, and all those stuff. I found the replicable case, the smallest possible replicable case, and I added exception at a point where I know that let's roll back the transaction. So I know at that point where I added the exception, the issue might have already occurred. So I just need to add print statement right places and figure out, okay, can we make out what's happening here? Let's do that. So I added an exception here. So this code is part of the reconciliation tool. So as you can see, we have methods like validate allocations, reconcile allocations. Okay, let's go into reconcile allocations method. If you look at that, again, this is a very short function. We adjust for taxes, and then we go through those allocations one by one, and then group them for some reason. And then finally, we reconcile against. Okay, reconcile against looks interesting. Let's go into that. Okay, this function looks complicated. So it's somehow grouping the vouchers and voucher type, and then looping through them, using the voucher type and voucher number as the key, and then fetching the document, the advanced document, which is the payment entry, and then deleting some ledger entries, then validating the allocated amount. Here, we have the code splits into two execution paths. One is for the journal entry and one for non-journal entries, which is the payment entry, right? And if you look at the method, it says update reference in payment entry. So it most likely is the case where the payment is actually getting updated. So let's go there. Okay, we are building a dictionary of some sorts and some other advanced payment logic. Okay, this looks complicated, but let's see if this issue occurs at this point. Again, the person who asked for advanced debugging method, this is the tool that I'm using. I just use print statements everywhere. It might look caveman-like, but this is highly effective. You'll be surprised that I've been using this method for fixing all those 800 issues. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to print the difference amount. At this point, and see if it actually is updated. If it's updated here, which means the issue has occurred at this point in time. So as you can see, I don't have to redo all the pulling in the unreconciled ones, allocating reconcile. It's already there. I just have to click on reconcile. My transaction is still not committed. I still have a replicable case if I want to. I can go back to my console, and I can see, okay, something got printed. Okay, we have two print state numbers. One is 0, one is 100. The 100 is from the difference amount. So when your paid amount and your allocated amount is different, as in the screenshot from the client, you can see on that bottom right corner, there's a difference amount column. No, that gets updated. So I'm just looking for that value getting updated. That value should ideally be 0. So if it's updated, most likely there's an overallocation, which is a bug. So I know, okay, that happened. The actual bug is actually here in this section, row number 7082 to row number 719. I'm not going to actually fix the bug. I specifically replicated this bug for this demonstration. The bug is already fixed. So this is the actual fix for the bug. So basically, when you allocate now, there's a logic which checks if you have enough amount to allocate. If you have 1,000 paid for a sales order, but if you allocate 1,100, there's a logic to check. There's an if this if statement row 664 was not working properly, so I rewrote the logic properly, and I added a payment entry.clear and unallocated reference document row, which will remove any references which has 0 allocation. So you end up having a perfect allocation. You will never over allocate. So you end up having a valid payment entry. So this fix is already made. It's a 4 or 5 month old bug. I'm not going to rewrite the code here. I'll just show you. Let me remove. So up until now, I haven't written any custom scripts. I haven't written any complex breakpoints. All I've made use of is my functional knowledge of what a payment entry and what a sales invoice was supposed to do. I made use of the Frappe's very simple DB transaction model, and I made use of exceptions. That's it. That's all I did. And I have a really fast replicable scenario already opened up. So even if I step through the code line by line, I can just hit continue and then retry again immediately. You see the feedback loop, right? So this is one strategy. Let's not worry about fixing this bug now. This demonstration is purely to give you that you don't need a complex debugging tool. You just need basic understanding to very quickly identify a bug. Okay, let me go back to the original develop branch, which doesn't have this bug. Okay, let's go back to my talk. Fine. Okay, now we come to the second class of issues, which are data issues. So what are they? What does a data issue look like? In the accounting module, it looks like this. Your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement doesn't agree. If you open them, some of the accounts will have different values. So how do you go about fixing this? Or how do you go about even analyzing this issue? Let's start with an example. You open the balance sheet, and your provisional profit and loss is saying like, okay, you have 3,79,000 or something, and some change. And your profit and loss says that you have 3,79,000 and some change, but if you look at the last two decimals, it's 44, not 43. So there's a slight difference. There's a 0.01 difference. Believe it or not, this is a valid bug, and it was raised, and it got to my. I was the one assigned to fix this. So where do you even start? Like, you have a report that processes the entire fiscal year's ledger entries, and you end up having only 0.01 difference between both of the reports. Okay, let's start. I have a strategy for this. Since we are in the accounting world, everything is debit and credit, and reports actually doesn't post anything. It only processes the already created ledger entries. So maybe there's a chance that there are some invalid ledger entries, like the sum of the total debit and credit doesn't match. That's a possibility, right? Okay, let's go and check that. First of all, I'll just show you that issue on my local setup as well. Let me close this. Let me remove these checkboxes. So this is balance sheet, and it's reporting me is 3,79,801.43. Let me open profit and loss statement for the same fiscal year. Remove the accumulated value filter. Now this is reporting 3,79,801.44. Again, the same issue. There's a very small 0.01 difference. It might be a rounding error. There's a high chance that is also possible. But if two different customers raise the same exact issue, then it might not be a rounding error. You have to look into it. Fine, let's start looking into it. So what can we do? Let's check the total debit and credit. Okay, fine. Let's go into the bench console. Fine. Okay, let's check the total debit and credit. Okay, which company am I looking at? So the company name is called Lisp space 2. I'm going to write an SQL query. Great. Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, so this query says that I don't have any imbalance in my accounts. My ledger entries, the total debit and credit match. Okay, then what else can it be? Then let's see. Okay, maybe there's not a entire ledger-wide imbalance. Maybe there's a voucher-level imbalance. Like there are chances where some vouchers will have total debit and credit doesn't match only for individual vouchers. It might not show up in the if you do a total account-based tally, but it might show up if you group it by vouchers. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to reuse the same query, but this time I'm going to group by voucher number. And I'm going to name this, I'm going to give this an alias. Okay, fine, but I don't want all this. Balance not equal to 0, which means that the total debit and credit doesn't match. When you sum up all the total debit and credit for individual vouchers and you find the difference between them, it should be 0, ideally. Okay, it too says that I don't have any imbalance at the ledger level. Then where does this difference come from? Okay, we need a different strategy then. Instead of worrying about the entire ledger entries for the entire fiscal year, what if we narrow down our search to a smaller time frame? Can we do that? Yes, we are actually at the end of the day we are running reports. Instead of running for a year, you can run your report for a month. You can do that, right? But there are 12 months in a year. You need to do that 12 times. Again, it might be manual and tedious. We can still give it a try. So we go back to the report. We switch to a date range type filters. So instead of from 1st of April to 31st of March 2024, I'm just going to run only for the first month, April month. And the balance sheet gives me that I have a negative 137. Fine. Let's do that for the profit and loss statement. Okay, for the month of April, that is that difference that still shows up. Okay, is it still true for the other month? Okay, let's check for May. 1st of May, go to 31st. So I have a professional profit and loss of 6,31,800. Fine. Let's do this again on a profit and loss statement. Okay, for the month of May, they match. So we immediately narrowed down our search to the very first month. Previously, we were concerned about, okay, within that entire year, whatever invalid entry is still in the ledger, it might be anywhere. Now, without writing any code, I mean, you don't even have to run this SQL query to figure this out. Just using the report and the built-in filters, I have narrowed down the search to the first month. But you still have 10 more months to check, right? There might be differences in other month as well. So how do you do that? Is there any better, much more efficient approach for this? There is. So instead of running the reports for each month, you split your time frame into 2 equal halves. So if you are running a report for an entire year, split it into 6 months and 6 months. Essentially a binary search. So you run the report for the first 6 months and check and do the same for the last 6 months. If the last 6 months doesn't have any balance, you just immediately avoid that. So within one step, half the time frame is gone. You don't have to worry about that. You only have to worry about the first half. Let's try that. You don't have to do it manually. I've built a tool for this, specifically for this issue. So it's called bisect accounting statements. Don't worry about the technical details of what these fields are. So what it does now, it creates a binary search tree for the time frame that you give. Here I'm giving 1st of April to the 31st of March 2024. And then it will allow the user to interactively bisect the time frame into smaller halves. And it will run the reports, both the reports, the profit and loss and the balance sheet report, and it will give you if there is any difference, it will give you the difference. So let's try this. Let's try if we can figure out the exact date on which this small 0.01 difference shows up. So let me start by bisecting left. Okay, when I bisect, so this heat map is just for visualization. It doesn't do anything, it's just to, serve as a visual aid of, okay, which section of the period you're bisecting. So for the first 6 months, I have total profit and loss of 2,70,000 some change. And the balance sheet is giving me a different number with a small difference. Fine, okay, that is an issue in the first half. Let me go up the binary tree and let me bisect the second half. That is no difference. So we immediately ruled out the second half. Okay, we know the issues in the first half. Let's dig deeper. Let me bisect the second quarter. Okay, 3,60,000, that is no difference, fine. Okay, now we are down to 3 months. Obviously, yeah, this has the difference. Let's bisect left or right. I'll let you guys choose. I mean, left? Left? Can I lock? Fine. Fine. Hey, we have a difference. Just to make sure, I'm going to go up and bisect on the right side to show, okay, that is no different. Like, it's almost the same. Fine. So we are on the right path. So the issue somehow is in the first 45 days. Let's dig deeper. Let me bisect again. I hope the screen is. I don't want to keep scrolling like this, but fine. So we're not even running for the entire month. We are only running till the 23rd of April. But I don't see any difference. Fine. Let's go up. Bisect the right part. The difference shows up here. Fine. So I'm going to stop talking and very quickly bisect and narrow it down. No difference. Bisect right, bisect left. Okay, that is the difference. Let me go back. It still has difference. From 24 to 26, there is no difference. From 27 to 29, there's a difference. From 27 to 28, so within those 2 days, there is a invalid entry. Let me bisect left. So we are on 27. 27 has no ledger entries, 0. Both profit and loss and balance sheet is giving me 0. Let me go up. Let me try for 28. Okay. So thanks for the applause. It took some time to figure out this approach, and write a tool for this. The funny thing now, we only narrowed down the specific date when the difference starts showing up. We don't know how the difference came to be or why the report is even giving you a difference. That is still one more day of debugging left, which I'm not going to do in front of you. But I know the root cause for this. I'll just quickly show you. Again, this issue is also fixed. So the actual root cause is, yeah. Great. So we know the issue starts on 28th of February, right? So I'm just going to filter on that specific date. Fine. Let me remove the cancelled entries. Okay, there's only one voucher that's posting ledger entries for that day, and I can very immediately see there's a round off entry posting to round off amount, but it is still a valid entry. The is cancelled flag is still set to 0, which means it's a valid entry. So either one of the report is ignoring this. All this time we didn't assume which report gave us the correct answer. You have to take that into mind. We didn't assume the correctness of one report over the other, but we still were able to narrow down the search to a single date. I know the exact issue because if you look at, there's a column called fiscal year now. Even though it's posting on 2023, it has a fiscal year 2021, 22, so the trial balance report ignores this. This is the actual root cause. That's it. Yeah, so the thing that I did is called bisection. It's not a new concept. In software industry, if you want to identify a change set that introduced a difference in behavior, you split the range into equal halves and then recursively check for the change in behavior. That's called bisection. I just used that on a time frame. I didn't use that in anything else. I just split my time into equal halves and then checked for whatever I want to check for. So the key takeaways. I didn't, you might have noticed I didn't write any complex code or script. I used basic tools to debug things. Your first point of action when you receive an issue is identify the smallest unit of replicable scenario. Then make use of the framework's very simple DB transaction model. Whenever an exception is thrown, the entire transaction is rolled back. So you can make use of that, like add an exception wherever you want. So if you suspect, okay, there is an issue, this is the part where the code might misbehave, you can actually put a exception before that and see if the issue still occurs. Because at that time, the transaction is already rolled back. And test your hypothesis on every step of the way. One such example is, we initially thought maybe the ledger entry is, the total debit and credit didn't match. No, but that wasn't the case. The total debit and credit did match. But there was an invalid fiscal year value for one specific round of entry, which showed up in the report for the entire fiscal year. So if I had gone that route of, okay, trying to find that invalid entry, I would have gone to a dead end. Like, that was not the actual issue. The actual issue was, there was an invalid entry, but it was not invalid on the total debit and credit logic. It was invalid because of some other field. But to find that, I need to use an approach much more generic, and it's not even related to accounts. The bisection approach is not even account-specific software analysis to method. It's a generic method. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, did you guys find it interesting in any way? Like, okay. I mean, given the chance, do you guys want to do this kind of work? Just give a honest show of hands. No? So it's stuck with me then. Fine. Anyway, yeah, thanks. Yeah. Question and answers? Yeah. That tool is merged in develop. You won't find it in V14 or 15. I'm planning to, backport it. But it is there in develop.
That's
fine.
Also, I have noticed one kind of bug. Like, if you are using finance book and accounting dimension, then if you select any of the finance book, any accounting transaction,
Okay.
like purchase invoice, sales invoice, when we open the GL general ledger, then this entry will not be there unless we put the filter.
accounting dimensions and both are like different concepts where most of the users confuse finance book as accounting dimension, but finance book is supposed to be used when you want to maintain like parallel books of accounting books. So it's not a filter, like, I mean, both have separate functionality.
So what he's trying to say is a finance book is poorly implemented. At the moment, we have no easy way to fix it. Just live with it.
Yes. Either way, you can prevent, like, by creating the accounting dimension itself is we can prevent, like.
So if you, for those who don't know what finance book is basically that you have to file taxes with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and the income tax, and they have separate rules of asset depreciation.